Welcome to CCBC TV's Arts Showcase, a series featuring performances from the campuses of the Community College of Baltimore County. I'm Monica Otal, Professor of Music and Concert Manager at CCBC. Today's Arts Showcase features internationally recognized folklorists Sparky and Rhonda Rucker. Their down-home musical and storytelling style has been heard in concert all over the United States and abroad, including performances on NPR's Prairie Home Companion, at the Kennedy Center and the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. They present a program entitled Let Freedom Ring, recalling our nation's movements for justice that have produced some of our most inspiring songs and stories.
The United States of America. We have an interesting history. We have a country that was founded on an idea, not a country that was inherited, as I like to say, a hemophilic son of a despot passing the mantle on to his youngin', but formed from an idea. The very first written document, the Declaration of Independence, said all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No promise that you're going to have happiness now. Nobody can promise you happiness. If somebody promised you happiness, they sold you a load of snake oil. Because happiness is something we all have to achieve for ourselves. But it said we'll give you the opportunity to pursue happiness. Marvelous words. But those words were written by white men who owned slaves. It did not pertain to women. Anytime a woman came into a marriage bond, any property she owned immediately became the property of her husband. Women couldn't even vote in this country till 1920. If you're sitting next to some guy, just slap him right now. Go, pow! You'd be within your perfect rights to do so. Give them a backhand, you know. See, if you do like this, they can duck. But my mama had a great backhand, boy. I wouldn't even see it coming. Whap! Whoa! What'd I do wrong? We still have not resolved the problems this country in terms of its Aboriginal inhabitants. And it took a civil war to free over 4 million West Africans held as slaves. So we are a country that's in the process of trying to become what we claim to be. Can I get an amen on this? Must be a bunch of Lutherans. Can I get an amen on this? Amen. All right. And as the professor told you, the struggle of humankind in this world actually has always had a soundtrack. All the music, be it a broadside ballad written in protest of the king, or in an old slave spiritual that on its surface was talking about going to heaven, but in reality was talking about getting the heck out of slavery. Or be it a song sung on a labor picket line, knowing that you're getting out there carrying that sign and you got the gun thugs that the company had that's going to come in and maybe take your life. Or within the struggles that I grew up with, the civil rights and the anti-war movement. When you were going out to cross a Ku Klux Klan picket line or American Nazi Party picket line, yet and still you did it anyway because when you're young you think you're immortal. But also because you knew if you didn't do it, it was not going to be done. I quite often will say, all my life, I've always felt like I was that little Dutch boy with his finger in the dike, trying to hold back the flood. Yeah, but if I pull my finger out, it's all going to, that's the way we have to feel about making changes in this world. We are a significant cog in the situation. If we're not there, it's going to break down. You have to think that way because you live in a society that actually has laws that can right itself, that can peacefully change power. But you have to hold the politicians' feet to the fire to make it happen. And it is up to you, and if you don't do it, you have failed. It's your fault. You've got to think that way to make the changes. And you got to work together. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom and we shall not be moved. Fighting for our freedom and we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Thank you. We're young and old together. We shall not be moved. Young and old together. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Help me sing. We shall not be moved. Sing a little louder. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. One last time we're singing. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As Sparky mentioned, a lot of these songs have code words or hidden messages in them from back, during Underground Railroad times when people were trying to escape slavery. And of course, it wasn't an organized, formal organization. You didn't have like a card saying you're part of the
Underground Railroad.
yeah.
Membership card.
Whip it out like your AAA card or something.
You gotta get a discount at the motel.
Right. It had to be a secret because it was a secret organization.
And it was against the law.
It was against the law, and that's why. But so as as a result, a lot of the songs had these code words. They might say, we're going to the promised land instead of we're going to freedom. Or we're going to Canaan land. In fact, Canaan land had a specific meaning. It meant Canada. There was this nasty law called the Fugitive Slave Law that meant that, you know, you could go up to New York State, you could go up to Wisconsin, you might be okay, but because of that law, a slave catcher could legally come up there, get you, and take you back down south. So a lot of times the goal really was Canada. That was where it was truly safe because they didn't recognize that law. So the other thing is about these songs that that developed, some of them were kind of crossed cultures. In fact, where I grew up in Kentucky, they had these camp meetings that started around 1800 or so. And at camp meetings, there were a lot of white people that came to these camp meetings, and they would bring their hymns, their 4 verses and the amen at the end. But there were also African Americans that came to these camp meetings, and they'd bring those old-time spirituals. They'd bring things like songs like Joshua fit the Battle of Jericho, or Wade in the Water. And the white people had never heard those songs before, and they'd sing along. And then when the white people were singing their hymns, the African Americans would add choruses because none of them had choruses. They might add some syncopation, some call and response. So they really affected each other, sang on each other's songs. The song we're going to do is a good example of that because the verses were written by an English Baptist minister named Samuel Stennett, but the chorus was an old Underground Railroad chorus. You've probably heard it. And if you know the song, we'd be honored if you'd sing along. In fact, even if you don't know the song, we'd be honored if you'd sing along. Banjos are notoriously hard to tune. Hopefully it'll stay in tune. And we're going to try 2 at the same time. On Jordan's stormy banks I stand and cast a wishful eye to Canaan's fair and happy land where my possessions lie. I am bound for the promised land. I'm bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. They're generous fruits that cannot fail on trees immortal grow. They're rocks and hills and brooks and vales with milk and honey flow. I am bound for the promised land. I'm bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. No chilling wind or poisonous breath can reach that helpful shore. And sickness, sorrow, pain, and death be felt and feared no more. I am bound for the promised land. I'm bound for the promised land. Oh, Thank you.
You know, it's interesting, a lot of the people who were involved in the Underground Railroad were also some of the same people that got themselves involved in the temperance movement and also in women's suffrage. It's always been that way. I know, as I said, I started out as a civil rights worker, and then as the Vietnam War began to take young black folks away, that was the first thing I began to realize. And then all of a sudden I'm saying, my God, we're stripping the country of our youth to go and fight in that war just to protect Michelin Tire Company's rubber tree plantations. And that's the only reason we're fighting this war. And then all of a sudden I thought, well, let me take the skills that I've learned and move into the coal fields of eastern Kentucky or southwestern Virginia and try to help poor white folk. Lord knows they need some help. Of course, you get in there and all of a sudden, I don't know if you ever saw the movie, the documentary, Harlan County, USA, but that was a very dangerous time, and I was there in the middle of all of that, where the Union struggles, and Tony Boyle had Jock Yablonsky's whole family wiped out, and I'm right there in the middle of it, and there people are putting down these things, they called them jack rocks. They were the things they'd put down to make the tires blow out on the coal trucks as they were going around curves, and all of a sudden the truck would go off a cliff, and many people were shooting it. It was like the Wild West. And it's just moving from one move because it's the same struggle. It's always the same struggle. It's always been the haves against the have-nots. And until you understand that, you're fighting the wrong battles.
So, as you mentioned, some of the people that were in the abolitionist movement were also fighting for women's rights, for suffrage. And so it was a long battle when you think about how long ago that was. You know, in the mid-1800s, early 18, you know, some of the pioneers in that movie, people like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, were dead by the time it came to fruition. And it's just heartbreaking when you think about that they gave their whole life to something and never saw it come to fruition. But in 1919, the 19th Amendment, the one that gave women the right to vote, finally passed the U.S. legislature. But then, you know, it's hard to pass an amendment in this country. People forget that. But then it has to go out to all the states. And it finally came down by August of 1920, finally came down to one state to be ratified, and that was Tennessee. And they were going to hold a vote in the Capitol. They did, and it was a tie. They needed one more vote to pass the amendment, and they didn't know where they were going to get it. And so, you know, they did some more, you know, campaigning, everything, and they came back. They were going to hold the vote again. And there was this gentleman, this man named Harry Byrne, who was a state representative from McMinn County down south of us, where we are in East Tennessee. And he had come to the Capitol that morning solidly against women's suffrage. Didn't want women to be able to vote. However, he also carried a note in his pocket from his mother who urged him to vote for the amendment. So he was in a quandary there for a while, but he ended up voting for the amendment, and he was the vote that pushed it over and made it so that I can vote in this next election. Harry Byrne. Of course, all the reporters swarmed around afterwards, you know, and they were asking him questions, and he's, CNN, Wolf Blitzer, all those people. And they asked him about it, and he said, yeah, you know, a mother's advice is always safest to follow. Sounds like a politician, doesn't it? Let us rouse the nation, let our words all hearts inspire, till tardy legislation grants us all we may desire. Proclaim the truth both day and night, deny it if you can, that every woman has the right to vote as well as men. Come along, speak right and sing. Come and join the chorus, let the echoes ring. Keep the music rising with a swell on every note, till Uncle Sam is wise enough to give us all a vote. Our cause has fought its way despite the shafts of ridicule, and he who fights for women's rights no longer is called a fool. School suffrage has been meted out in states both east and west, and by persistent work, no doubt, we'll manage all the rest. Come along, speak right and sing. Come and join the chorus, let the echoes ring. Keep the music rising with a swell on every note, till Uncle Sam is wise enough to give us all a vote. Come along, speak right and sing. Come and join the chorus, let the echoes ring. Keep the music rising with a swell on every note, till Uncle Sam is wise enough to give us all a vote. Thank you.
I know when we were putting our Let Freedom Ring album together, Rhonda was saying she was having a hard time finding a song from women's suffrage that was a good song. Because quite often people who are committed to social change are not artists and can't come up with good. In fact, she was saying that every chorus was different and whatnot, you know, because one of the things that they used to do at some of these rallies and whatnot was they would take a song that everybody knew, and that would be the tune you would use, and then all of a sudden you would just change the words, and that way people could at least sing along with you. But you have to have a chorus that's easy to sing. I always try to tell it to young songwriters. If it's not a chorus people can sing, it's going to be a song people are going to soon forget, because you want people to be able to sing it and have it come out while they're washing dishes and feeding the baby and whatnot, and that song ran around their head and they can't help but sing it. You know, I was 9 years old when a young African-American man, 14 years old, came down to visit his grandfather in Greenwood, Mississippi. Now, I know it's pronounced Mississippi, but I've learned that when you're down that way, if you take the time to say all the syllables, they might ask you for your passport and you'll never get out of there. So you just say Mississippi and head on out. But there he was, coming down, and because he'd come from Chicago, he hadn't had all the problems of Jim Crow that were facing people in the South, and he's there with his friends there in Greenwood, and they're going into this grocery store, and they perceive slight to the wife of the owner of the store caused the night riders to show up at his grandfather's house that night. They hauled him out, beat him severely, shot him in the head, put a chain around his neck, attached an Evinrude outboard motor to his body, threw him in the water to sink. And that young man's name was Emmett Till. And when his body arrived home and his mother saw what his body had gone through, she said, "I want an open coffin for this funeral. I want the world to see what they did to my baby, so no other mother has to go through what I went through." She was not saying she wanted to be a martyr for the cause, but she knew what she had to do. She had to find the inner strength to do this. And it was in all the papers, in Jet magazine, Ebony magazine. I remember as a kid seeing those pictures and being frightened about what could happen to me. And there in Montgomery, Alabama, reading it in the paper that day, a seamstress coming home from work, got on the bus, paid her fare, got off the bus and went around to the back entrance, because that's what you had to do when you were black, to sit in the colored section of the bus. And she's sitting there, she's just horrified at what had happened to Emmett Till when the bus driver told her to get up and give her a seat. And you know, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And she said, "No, I will not." Bus driver said, "I'm going to call the cops." She said, "You do what you got to do, because I'm doing what I've got to do." And her name was Rosa Parks. She did not wake up that morning saying, "I'm going to start a movement." But everybody is called to task, and are you ready to answer the call? They threw her in jail, and the people were so upset that a woman without stain like Rosa Parks was thrown into jail that the whole town decided, we're not going to ride those buses anymore. And for over a year, they walked to work. Old folk that could barely walk, walking to work. You know, it was against the law in Alabama to boycott. But nobody can tell you where to spend your money. And they said, we need to organize this movement. We need a place to meet. Well, the only place back in those days that black folk could meet without being interfered with was in a church. But if you ain't a heathen, I know most of y'all are heathens, but if you ain't a heathen and go to church, you know there's politics in church too. Oh, yeah, Sister Smith thinks she's going to be superintendent of the Sunday school. Not while I'm going to this church. Brother Johnson going to be head digging. No, buddy. No, we're going to put a stop to this. So they said, we got to find a church that ain't got any politics. We need a young pastor, with a big church. Well, there was this young pastor who had to leave his home in Atlanta, Georgia, to get away from his daddy because his daddy had Atlanta sewed up. So he probably closed his eyes and said, I'm going to get me a church. And, Montgomery, okay. And they asked him to let him meet in his church. And this young 26-year-old pastor's name was Martin Luther King Jr. Got to say Jr. because you got to understand Daddy King was something. Oh, yeah. He didn't start out that morning and say, I'm going to give my life for the cause. But his name was called and he showed up. That's what it takes to make a movement work. Everybody has to answer the call. Oh, yeah, and when we were singing those songs, trying to get the courage to head out and do one more picket line. If you miss me in the back of the bus, you can't find me nowhere. Oh, come on up to the front of the bus. I'll be riding right there. I'll be riding right there. I'll be riding right there. Oh, come on up to the front of the bus. I'll be riding right there. If you miss me in the cotton fields, you can't find me nowhere. Oh, come on up to City Hall. I'll be voting right there. Come on. I'll be voting right there. I'll be voting right there. Oh, come on up to the City Hall. I'll be voting right there. And if you miss me in the Mississippi River, you can't find me nowhere. Oh, come on up to the city pool. I'll be swimming right there. Whoa, I'll be swimming right there. I'll be swimming right there. Whoa, come on up to the city pool. I'll be swimming right there. Back of the bus, help me. If you miss me in the back of the bus, You can't find me nowhere. Oh, come on up to the front of the bus. I'll be riding right there. You know that I'll be riding right there. I'll be riding right there. Whoa, 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 come on up to the front of the bus. I'll be riding right there.
Well, Sparky mentioned some of the labor struggles. I grew up in Kentucky, and in eastern Kentucky, around 1931, there was a war going on in Harlan County between the coal mining companies and the coal miners. There was a woman that lived there. Her name was Florence Reese, and her husband, Sam Reese, was a coal miner, a union leader. And then there was this nasty, no-good sheriff in town named J.H. Blair. I was doing this song one time in eastern Kentucky, and people came up to me afterwards saying, you know, we're kin to J.H. Blair. But, you know, I'm from Kentucky, too, so, you know, maybe I'm kin to J.H. Blair. We're all kin, right? Anyway, the J.H. Blair had all of his cronies, and they came to the Reese household one evening, and they were going to gun him down. They knocked on the door. Florence Reese answered the door, told him her husband wasn't home, which was the truth. But they barged in anyway. They ransacked the house. They couldn't find him, so they set up watch outside. They were going to gun him down when he came home. Fortunately, Sam got wind that this was happening, and he made himself scarce that night. But in the meantime, Florence Reese was left inside that house with her 7 children. When things got tense in the middle of the night, she tore off a page of a wall calendar, wrote the words to a song that became one of the most famous songs in labor history. Every now and then, people dust it off and sing it again. 30 years later, during the Civil Rights Movement, they changed the words a little bit and sang it. When they were having all those problems up in Madison, Wisconsin, with the school teachers, and the firemen, police, they were singing it up there. And even on the other side of the world, during the Arab uprisings, the Arab Spring, they were singing it over there. We're going to do Florence Reese's version of this song. It's probably one you've heard of. Once again, anything we do, please sing along. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? My daddy was a miner. He's now an errand son. And I'll stick with the Union till every battle's won. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You're either with the Union or a thug for J.H. Blair. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Don't scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Come on, you good workers, who missed you all down around the good old Union has come in their feet well. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Florence Reese, thank you.
In Monteagle, Tennessee, there was a folk school founded along the Danish folk school lines. In fact, all over the country during this time, there were a lot of places that were starting to build these folk schools in rural areas, like the John C. Campbell School and forget the name of that place up there in Michigan, at Circle Pines, where a lot of the red diaper babies were taken for their summer camps and whatnot, and all the people who were involved in the labor movement. Well, this place down in Monteagle, Tennessee, which is about a third of the way down from Nashville to Chattanooga along I-24 now, it's a place called the Highlander Center, Highlander Folk School. It was a place that was very instrumental in the labor movement at that time. Even Eleanor Roosevelt became involved with it. A man named Miles Horton, a wonderful man. But as they started bringing in some of the black laborers from South Carolina and whatnot to come in and talk about trying to form unions in these cotton mills and whatnot, folks began to be upset that black and white were working together. And it was at that time that some of the garment workers from South Carolina brought a song that they used to sing on their picket lines, a song called I'll Overcome, that later became the song We Shall Overcome. And it was there at the Highlander Center that Martin Luther King learned that song from a good friend of mine who just recently passed, a guy named Guy Carawan. Well, they burned them out down at Monteagle, and they moved the Highlander School to my hometown of Knoxville, Tennessee, about 6 blocks from where I was growing up. And because I knew that there were folk singers come through, at one time Woody Guthrie was there, Pete Seeger spent time there, Guy Carawan. And I would go down just to be with the folk singers. You know, here's some music. And I remember one day they said that there's a whole bunch of musicians coming through from the Southern Folk Cultural Revival Project. And we were sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And of course, time went by. It was getting toward midnight. About that time, they struggled in. And it was a blind man being led through guitar player by the name of Reverend Pearlie Brown, who became my mentor that taught me how to play bottleneck style guitar. But that was my first time of meeting him. A young black woman who had been a member of SNCC Freedom Singers, who later on formed a group called Sweet Honey in the Rock. Bernice Regan was there. Anne Romaine, who was one of the directors of the tour. And then a tall, skinny white man with a big, long-neck Vega banjo came in. It's Pete Seeger. Everybody else was just rushing through to go to the beds. They were so tired from being on the road. But Pete Seeger looked around and saw all these people sitting there waiting to hear some music. And he pulled up a rocking chair, pulled out that banjo, and started singing Barbara Allen. And that's when I knew that's what I'm going to do with my life. Of course, as time went on, and I'm in college in the 60s, the turbulent 60s, and all of a sudden Jimi Hendrix was catching my eye, and been playing a little Chuck Berry and a little, wow, James Brown, and all those kind of things. And so I'm up on, we were having a student strike, and I'm up there playing my SG Special electric guitar. And here comes Guy Caraway and looked at me and said, "Is that you up there, Sparky? Have you given up playing freedom songs?" So many of those songs were old slave songs that we would take and maybe alter the words some, because we used to sing this line saying, "Keep your hands on the plow, hold on." But then we said, we've had our hands on the plow for 350, 400 years. It ain't done any good. Maybe we better raise our sights, keep our eyes on the prize. Paul and Silas, they were bound in jail, had no money for to go their bail. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on, keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Paul and Silas, they began to shout. Jail doors open and they walked out. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. The only thing that we did wrong, stayed in the wilderness a day too long. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. And the only thing that we did right was the day we started to fight. Don't you keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on,
Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
the only thing that we can stand.
Brothers and sisters walking hand in hand. Keep your eyes on the prize.
Hold on, won't you hold on,
Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
won't you hold on,
Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. So many of those songs, so many of them were old slave songs. And, what does that tell us? That you can take a song 400 years old and sing it during the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s, 1950s, 1960s, and it's still relevant? Things hadn't changed much. Think about that. Sometimes, though, people wrote new songs, and we're going to do one of those. This is a song that James Bevel and Bernard Lafayette wrote. James Bevel used to talk about how they came to write this song. He said he grew up during segregation, a black neighborhood, but he could look over and see the white neighborhood from his house, and he'd be wanting to go over there and play with that kid. And his parents would have to tell him, no, it's not allowed. Of course, the white kids, same story. I want to go over, he's got a cool toy. Nope, it's not allowed. But James Bevel said he noticed something else. He said he noticed that his dog didn't have any problems going over there and playing with that other kid's dog. I mean, look at the dogs of the world. I think dogs got life figured out a little bit better than we humans do sometimes, Black dog play with the white dog play with the yellow dog play with the red dog play with the black. They don't care what color they are. They're just ready to play. Have a good time. So they wrote this song called Dog Dog. Some people call it My Dog Loves Your Dog. I'm going to play the bones on this song. This is a really old instrument. People would use rib bones from an animal.
How old is it?
Back during ancient history, early civilizations, the Tigris and Euphrates River, the cradle. In the city of Ur. Yeah, they did archaeological digs and found that people use these, or they think that people.
Much of an alphabet.
Yeah, Ur. But you put them back to back so they curve away from each other. Hold one real tight, one not so tight. Move your wrist like you're waving. Practice for a few years. There's always a fly in the ointment. And then if you have two pair, you can do one rhythm with one hand, another rhythm with the other hand. My dog loves your dog loves my dog loves your dog, and your dog loves my dog. Then why can't we sit under the apple tree? My little doggy was playing one day.
Dog, 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 dog.
Down in the meadow by a bundle of hay.
Woo. Dog, 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 dog.
Another little doggy came along.
Little dog, 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 dog.
He said, let's get together and eat this bone.
Dog, 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 dog.
Then why can't we sit under the apple tree? You walk with me. You talk with me. Why can't you hold my hand and tell me you understand now? Can't you see that you and me would be so happy? We're gonna sit under the apple tree. My dog loves your dog loves my dog loves your dog loves my dog. Then why can't we sit under the apple tree? My dog loves your dog dog loves my dog loves your dog loves my dog loves your dog loves my dog loves your dog. Why can't we sit under the apple tree? Ruff! Thank you.
I'm going to do you one last song. I told you I worked in this movement, so you got me to thank. Thank you. There's so many people who worked in the movement that you'll never know who they are. And Rhonda and I, we do this music for a living. We're on the road 9, 10 months out of the year. I'm 70 years old. This is getting kind of tiring, so I need y'all to help me out on this thing. At least make sure you vote. Because if you don't vote, you got no complaint. And I personally, if I find that you haven't voted, I will come in here, and me and my friend over here, we're going to jack you up because you didn't vote. Because too many people died for that right. Schwerner, Cheney, Goodman, Reeve, Valla Louisville, just to name 5 that died for the right to vote. Now, I also was involved in the Poor People's Campaign. Dr. King, when he was given that Pulitzer Prize for Peace, he said, it ain't black against white. It's, as I said earlier, it's have against have not. That struggle's been going on since we climbed out of the trees and started walking upright. And the thing is, everybody's got a dog in that fight. He said, let's go out there to the Southwest, and the Navajo and the Hopi, and those Pecos Bells cowboys. Take your grievances to the legislature, down to Congress. Make them do the job you're paying them to do. Let's go up into Minnesota, where the descendants of the Vikings and all those Sioux and Cheyenne warriors. Take your grievances down to the White House. Tell them what you need. Let's go down into the Southwest, down there where the descendants of slaves and the descendants of slave owners and those Cherokee and Choctaw, Chickasaw, Shawnee, come on up to Washington, D.C. And they got these mule trains, and they would go from city to city, and it was up to those who were working in the Poor People's Campaign to provide places for them to stay and food as they came through. And Dr. King was working on that when he got a call from his friend down in Memphis. He said, Doc, there's people trying to get the union going there, the garbage workers. They're only making 75 cents an hour. Who can raise a family on 75 cents an hour? And Doc, they won't even let them take a lunch break. They got to, while they're emptying other people's garbage, you got to eat their sandwiches while there's no place to go. Doc, please come. And that's when Dr. King went to Memphis. There were two workers. It was raining that day, and they were emptying the garbage. It was lunchtime, and the driver got out of his car, went in to eat, and they're still out there. And he left the truck sitting there, and they climbed into the back of that garbage truck, those trash compactor garbage trucks. And the driver came back out and didn't know they were in the back, and he turned the machine on. That was the straw that broke the back for Dr. King. And he started directing his energies to the struggle in Memphis. And the people were just saying, I ain't asking for nothing than any other human being. They were carrying signs and said, I am a man. Treat me like a man. And you know, as I said, Rhonda and I, we travel, and you would be surprised some of the places where I've slept on more floors than most of you have ever walked on. I've eaten more bad burritos than you knew existed. I wish somebody had made me understand that stuff's going to come back on you. You know, every bad burrito, every floor you sleep on, your body going to feel it when you get to be old. And if you think I go through some trouble, just think of what Dr. King was going through. Besides that, having the FBI bugging him all the time and sending nasty letters to his wife and people threatening him all the time, it got to the point that Coretta wouldn't answer the phone. There were so many death threats being called in. And he's tired. He gets there, he caught maybe the flu or something, and he's there at the Lorraine Motel, and people wanting him to come down to the Mason Lodge to give a speech, and he said, I can't go. And he turned to his second in command, Dr. Ralph David Abernathy. Abernathy, you go. See, Dr. Abernathy was cool. Dr. Abernathy was like the guy that comes out, you know, the setup pitcher, the one that comes out about the 7th inning, and you know, and keeping things cool until it's time for the 9th inning when the ace comes out throwing that 100-mile-an-hour fastball. See, that's Dr. King throwing the fastball, but you need a setup pitcher. And that was what happened. He was the one that he could make people laugh. He could tell them, he was like Rachel Maddow. He could break it down for you to tell you what the thing was about. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about. You need somebody who can do that to tell you what the struggle is. And Dr. Abernathy came in there and he walked in the door and the whole crowd said, we want Dr. King. We want Dr. King. He had to go back. He called Dr. King up. He said, Doc, this is your crowd. I can't do it. You got to come down here. It's raining and whatnot, and Dr. King got himself up out of his sick bed, went down to the Mason Hall to give a speech. Now, Dr. King was one of the world's best orators. You won't find another one that's better. And he crafted his speeches. Read them. You know, if you got some extra time, just get some of them speeches and read them and see how he turns a phrase to make you see the struggle. Not just intellectualize it, but to see it. But he had not planned to make a speech that night. So the speech he gave was extemporaneously from his heart. And he thought about the struggle that they'd gone through, and he thought about the story of Moses, how he's leading them knuckleheads out of bondage, and even after they've been saved them people with a pillar of fire and opened up the Red Sea, and then they still want to worship the golden calf. My goodness, what's wrong with these people? They said, we got to let these old people die off. That's why they had to wander for 40 years in the desert, to let the old folks die off so the young people could come in with the fresh ideas. That's what that story tells us. And he said, just like Moses was allowed to go up on the mountain and see the promised land, but he couldn't go because he said, Moses, you still messed up. You did that murder. I ain't forgot that. But I'll let you see the promised land. And when Dr. King started speaking to the crowd, he said, I've been to the mountaintop, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I know that we as a people will get to the promised land. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. And then he turns to go back to his seat, and that sickness overcame him. He almost collapses. They have to catch him and set him in his chair. But the next morning, he's feeling pretty good. Let me tell you, folks, adrenaline is a wonderful drug. There have been many gigs that I went to that I was sick by the time it was over. I was feeling really. If you could save the adrenaline that you had when you was 8 years old, when you was running around, why walk when I can run? If you could save that and then bring it back out when you're 70, whoa, man, you'd be something. You know what I'm talking about. You're getting old too. You ain't as old as I am, though. He was feeling good. And they're sitting there in that room, and they're eating a little food, and they're joking and laughing. He's got all these young ministers around him, and they're having a good time. And about that time, Andrew Young walks in. Y'all know Andy Young, right? He used to be, he was first black mayor of Atlanta. He was secretary of the UN under Clinton. Oh, yeah. Andy Young was the straight man. He was the one that would shoot down the ideas of the young ministers to make their argument strong. Sometimes you don't know what you feel like till you get into an argument. You don't know what your true feelings are. And yeah, that's the way I feel. Sometimes that's, but it takes that argument to get it out. And that was Andy's job. He was the guy that was always trying these people's patience. And Andy comes walking in, and Dr. King said, Andy, what are you doing? And why didn't you tell me you were coming? And he reaches in and grabs a pillow and hits Andy a whap. And he goes, what? And so he grabs a pillow and hits Dr. King back. And all of a sudden, they got this pillow fight going. All the ministers in them three-piece suits, they roll around like puppies. And walk, and just laughing and having a good time. I don't know about you, but I'm glad Dr. King had that moment. Being there with the people that he trusted the most. Being able to laugh and just take a little time for themselves. Because after they had them feathers flying in the room, he steps out on the balcony there at the Lorraine Motel. And he sees walking across the parking lot the man who's going to be singing that night at the meeting. He said, I think it was Precious Lord, Take My Hand was the song. He said, I want you to sing it especially pretty for me tonight. Sing it for me tonight. And that's when the shot rang out. And Dr. King fell mortally wounded. You can kill the dreamer. You can kill the dreamer. But thank the Lord you can never kill the dream. The song was written by Bill Dale. He preached about love, read from the Bible. His words rang out like an old-time revival. Said you will need courage, but you do not need a gun. We shall overcome. Red walking shoulder to shoulder from a jail in Birmingham. He said it is not over. Pray sisters, pray brothers, all the way to Washington. We shall overcome. The chorus goes like this. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I know that I do believe that we shall overcome someday. But then one day in Memphis, skies turned gray. In the blinking of an eye, the dream was blown away. If you can remember what that man has done, let's all sing, we shall overcome. Help me sing. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I know that I do believe that we shall overcome someday. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this performance by Sparky and Rhonda Rucker. If you would like to attend a Music Forum concert, please note that each Friday during the fall and spring semesters, the music department of CCBC presents Music Forum concerts at 12:20 in the recital hall of the Arts and Humanities Hall on the Essex campus. These concerts are an integral part of our students' education, and all of the concerts are free and open to the public. For more information on Music Forum, please call 443-840-1521 or visit our website at ccbcmd.edu/performingarts. I'm Monica Otal. Thank you for watching CCBC TV's Arts Showcase.